Welcome into Rogue Football. I'm your host, Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Right now, we have got our Los Angeles Chargers 7-round mock draft on deck. Fired up to get into this one. A really exciting new direction for the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh coming in as head coach. He's going to try to establish the trenches, protect Justin Herbert, play tough football. This is a coach that has built programs throughout his entire career as a head coach. When you talk about Stanford, talk about Michigan, both at the college level, then obviously the 49ers did a tremendous job coaching that team as well. Now he's going to take over the Chargers with Justin Herbert. I think good things are going to follow. Jesse Minter followed him from Michigan to Los Angeles. This is a guy that could be on a path to an NFL head coaching job sooner rather than later, as one of the best young defensive coordinators in the game. Greg Roman, a very interesting hire, certainly will get that running game going for the Chargers. A little concerning for the passing game overall, but we will see how that plays out. I think Justin Herbert can cover up for a lot of potential deficits in the passing game. Another indication, though, that they are going to be a run-first physical football team. You bring in Joe Ortiz from Baltimore. So happy he's finally a GM, has deserved a GM job for a long time. He should be able to draft very well. Again, coming from the Baltimore Ravens organization, that's a team that has consistently drafted similarly to the way I have viewed the board over the last several years in the NFL draft. Look, the Chargers, they are in the red in cap space in a big way. Right now, per overthecap.com, they have negative $35 million in 2024 salary cap space, so they're going to have to cut some players. Their current needs are offensive tackle, center, interior defensive line, wide receiver if they have to move on from Williams or Keenan Allen, cornerback, safety. If Mack or Bosa move on at edge, they'll need that as well. Linebacker, potentially got a couple guys entering free agency. I think they'll also want a big tight end who can block, with that Jim Harbaugh rushing offense. So with so many needs, there's no way we are going to hit on all of them in this draft. We aren't going to necessarily force anything, let the draft board come to you. This roster is probably at least a year away from really competing at a super high level. So let's get talented guys that fit what we want to be, establish the culture in year one under Jim Harbaugh, and then try to make that push potentially in year two to maybe compete late into January and into February. Again, no way we're going to hit on all the needs in this draft. 7 draft picks for the Chargers. 5th overall. That is a great spot to be in this draft. You know that there's probably 3 teams ahead of you that are quarterback needy. At the very least, there's some teams behind you that are quarterback needy. Maybe this could be a point where at 5 overall, you decide to trade down, get even more draft capital. But for me, when you're sitting at 5 and you have a clear need at tackle and a blue chip tackle falls to you and Joe Alt, you got to be over that all day. I think that pairing him with what you have on your offensive line, with Rashawn Slater, now you have 2 bookend tackles at left and right tackle. Slater has played some right tackle in the past, so I think whatever you need to do there to figure that out, you've got 2 guys you can really build around. And the reason Joe Alt is blue chip is he has tremendous athleticism and length. He has NFL bloodlines. He's only 20 years old, and he's one of the most technically refined tackles we've seen in a very long time coming out. So a guy that all of his tape is 20 years or younger, and a guy that came in playing tight end as well. This is just a no-brainer type of pick, in my opinion. Yes, you could trade down, potentially acquire more assets, but for me, protecting Justin Herbert, making sure you can create push in the run game on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and continuing to build out that offensive front is going to be a smart way to build things. It's going to be a Jim Harbaugh way of building things, in my opinion. So love that pick of Joe Alt, who is 3rd overall on my board in this class. Getting him at 5 at a need, position of need, and pairing him with Rashawn Slater, it just makes too much sense for me. Then at 37 overall, a lot of different directions the Chargers could go, but I looked at my board. I looked at who could make the biggest impact for them. On the other side of the ball, Tyler Nubin, I have a 1st-round grade on. He's still on the board, the safety out of Minnesota. This is a guy that has length. He's a very powerful safety, a good stout tackler, but most importantly, he is a ball hawk over the middle of the field. He can pick passes off at an extremely high level, very instinctual, has very good speed and overall athleticism. I think Tyler Nubin, paired with what you have on the defensive side of the ball already with Derwin James, I think Derwin James is in line to have, a much better couple years here with Jesse Minter as defensive coordinator versus what you had in the past. Tyler Nubin and Derwin James, I think, could be a fantastic pairing, and I think you're helping shut down the middle of the field, making offenses more one-dimensional. I like that. At 69 overall, back to the offensive side of the ball, offensive lineman Dominic Puny. We mentioned that the Chargers need a center. I think Puny can play center. He can play guard. He can play tackle for you. This is one of the rare cases where you have a 5-position flex offensive lineman, and Puny, he plays with very good leverage. He's extremely technically sound. He's a good athlete, has power in his punches. I love the idea of bringing a Dominic Puny to the Los Angeles Chargers to play center early on, and then depending on how things shake out with the rest of the offensive line, he can do a lot of different things for you. So now you have really fortified that offensive front in front of Justin Herbert and with that running game, right? At 106 overall, you're flipping sides to the defensive side of the ball. Dwayne Carter, the Duke defensive tackle. This is a player that can be extremely stout. He is a little bit compact in his build, but has good length for his height and good proportional length. The guy that can stop the run, can stack and shed, can penetrate. He can bull rush you into the backfield. He also has a few moves in his arsenal that can help him get penetration quickly and get into that backfield. I think Dwayne Carter should be a day 2 prospect. Getting him early on day 3 is a coup here for the Chargers. At 139 overall, cornerback Jarrian Jones played a lot of nickel at Florida State, but this is the type of guy that can absolutely play outside for you as well. So you've got versatility there. He's very athletic, very explosive, a good downhill run defender, very sticky in coverage. I just love the fit here. Another player who I have as an extremely underrated prospect. I think you can kind of look across the board at that Florida State defense. There's a ton of underrated players. Jared Verse is going to be a first-round pick. But other than that, in the secondary, up front, there's so many players that were part of a championship-level defense that are going to bring that type of talent to the NFL as well. I think Jarrian Jones is one of them. At 183 overall, finally we get a Michigan man in here, tight end A.J. Barner. Look, I told you, the Chargers are going to want to get tight ends who can line up on the line of scrimmage, line up in the slot, and block their asses off. A.J. Barner can absolutely do that. Very good length, very experienced blocker. Did it for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan last year after transferring from Indiana. I think that he just makes a lot of sense in this spot for them, and he helps them get that running game going in year 1, as does our next pick, 223 overall, running back Frank Gore Jr. What a story it would be for Frank Gore Jr. to end up with Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles after his dad spent a good amount of his career with Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. But I just think that this would be not only a fun fit for that reason, but Frank Gore Jr. brings a lot of the skill sets that his dad brought to the table as well. He's not quite as big as Frank Gore was, Frank Gore Sr., but a guy who can run with power, can break tackles, has good quickness and the ability to jump cut and one cut. I think that he brings a similar skill set. Not quite as big, not quite as powerful, but getting him this late in the draft and being able to pair him with, if you still have Austin Eckler, I think it makes a lot of sense for this running game. They're going to try to be a run-first team, I believe, and Frank Gore Jr. can help out in that department. 256 overall, defensive lineman Fabian Lovett out of Florida State. I mentioned they have a lot of underrated prospects in this class. This is another player similar to Dwayne Carter, who in my opinion can be stout against the run, can kind of hold the point, but also use his athleticism and use his hands to create disruption in the backfield. So I think you're getting two guys there that can really help fortify the defensive front against the run, but also give you a little juice against the pass. So I think that's pretty exciting. Now, again, that's the end of this one, but didn't hit all the needs. But I said you're not going to be able to. This is going to take a couple of years to get it where you really want it to be if you're Joe Ortiz, Jim Harbaugh. The bottom line, though, is they improved their ability to protect Justin Herbert with Joe Alt and Dominic Puny in a big way, to cover and make plays on the back end with Tyler Nubin and Jarrian Jones, to create push in the run game with Joe Alt, Dominic Puny, and Barner out of Michigan. Frank Gore is a great story and a very good back who's going to help your running game. You're more stout up front and have some penetration ability with Carter, with Lovett. You still need to improve outside corner, although Jarrian Jones could potentially help you out in that regard as well. Linebacker, maybe edge depending on what happens there, maybe wide receiver depending on what happens there. But the Chargers, they are not going to lose all their top dogs, right? They're going to lose some of them with these cap cuts. But which ones they ultimately lose could help dictate some of the draft direction. And then the draft evaluation could also help them decide which players they feel comfortable cutting. Some of that will illuminate potentially how the draft is going to go for the Chargers. But at this point, we don't necessarily know all that. We don't have all that information. But I think that this type of draft would help set the tone, set the culture for what the Los Angeles Chargers are going to be under Jim Harbaugh. And then you continue to build that out in year 2. But I think this definitely sets you in the right direction for the Los Angeles Chargers. If you're a fan of the Chargers, let me know what you think in the comment section below. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.